Thanks very much, Ceann Corda, and thanks very much, Minister, as well. I want to start off by saying that we welcome this piece of legislation. I also want to, I suppose, just acknowledge and think about all of the babies and children that, that is actually what we're speaking about at the end of the day, and how tragic and just sometimes there's actually no words even to know how to describe the situation. And again, also, as you've said, Catherine Corliss, we owe her a huge debt of gratitude. And she actually was here in this chamber during the PLS discussions, because it was during COVID, and we were thankfully able to open up the chamber to a number of people. And I always thought it was quite fitting that she had the opportunity to come in here and address us. So I also want to pay tribute to her and all of the other advocacy groups as well. And I know that at the time of the last general election, there was an expectation. Actually, people had been invited to the PLS during that Dáil term, and they were hoping that this would be passed. So I'm very conscious of the time frame that has passed for people and how anxious everybody is to get it, to see this getting sort of resolved. I also want to say that I do actually acknowledge a huge amount of the work that we put in at committee and during our PLS discussions. Deputy Ward and Deputy Cairns are here, who are also members of the committee, along with others. But this was one of our first PLS discussions as a committee. It took us a long time, let's just say, and sometimes I wondered, would we, get it all together? But we did, and it actually is really refreshing to see some of the recommendations being taken on board. And for me, and I hope I don't ever regret saying this, but I feel it's the first time that I've engaged in a process like that where you can actually see the work being reflected back. And I think it just shows that when that process is done correctly and I suppose respected in the way it should be, it can result in really good, strong legislation, because in all legislation we should be listening to those that are affected by it or those that work in the area, and that's why consultation is always key. So in particular I want to acknowledge the area of the coroner and the fact that that jurisdiction is going to be maintained. I think that's really important, and that came up time and time again with people. That was one of their key concerns, one of their key worries about potentially disallowing the powers of the coroner, and we all know that was really, really important. So I welcome that. I would like to get some more information in relation to the 20-metre criteria, and if maybe when you're in your reply speech or at some point we can get more detail on that, because I do know that was one part that some people contacted us since this has been published and are slightly concerned. Will this mean that maybe now that there can't be an excavation in certain areas? It may not mean that, but we just want to get the information on that. And given that, even in example for in Tuam, we know how near that is to so many residential areas, will there be any sort of a negative effect in that? And it's just to kind of get some more clarity and information on that in relation to it. And also one of the other concerns that was brought to our attention was in relation to the criteria to actually go in and have do an intervention. And just, I suppose some people are concerned, is this still a little bit too rigid or strict? And I suppose with all aspects of anything in relate that has in any way to do with mother and baby institutions, and I know you've acknowledged this in the past, there is a fear from people and a distrust that they are always thinking worst case scenario. And I don't blame people for thinking that, because that has been their treatment of the hands of the state for decades. So I suppose just some clarity on relation to the criteria on the 20-metre rule. And then just, I picked up on your speech, and I think it's good in relation to, because this came up during the PLS as well, about the family members and the hierarchy. And I suppose I think you had said there will be an appeals mechanism. I think that's welcome, and if we could just get, if you have any more information on how you see that playing out. And the other thing I wanted to mention was in relation to the chair of the board being a coroner, a former coroner, or having coronial experience. I think that's absolutely vital, because it's really important that we have people that actually know all of the ins and outs and all of the various parts of this. And again, that there is stakeholder engagement and that they would be involved in that, former survivors, people who are relevant to that process, and the consultation with family members. So I will say I would welcome it. I'm glad to see a lot of the recommendations that we've gave a PLS being taken on board. Just a few concerns around the criteria, around the 20-metre rule, and I suppose in particular the criteria part for other sites, for other potential sites. People are afraid maybe if they come forward and they really feel that they have information on a particular site, are they going to be told they don't fit the criteria? And there are some of the fears, just to relay them back. But I would say we would broadly welcome it and look forward to the committee stage. Thanks, Cian Corla.
Thank you very much.